Ajatashatru. Instigated by his wicked friend Devadatta, he seized his father, King Bimbisara, confided him in a room with walls 7 deep, and forbade all the court officials to visit the king. Vaidehi, the king's consort, was devoted to him. After having bathed and cleaned herself, she spread over her body ghee and honey mixed to a paste with wheat flour, filled her ornaments with grape juice, and secretly offered this food and drink to the king. He ate the flour paste, drank the juice, and then asked for water. Having rinsed his mouth, he joined his palms in reverence, and facing Vulture Peak, worshipped the world-honored one from afar, and said, Mahamadgalyayana is my close friend. I beseech you to have pity on me, and send him here to give me the 8 precepts. Then Mahamadgalyayana flew as swiftly as a hawk to the king. Day after day he came like this to give the king the 8 precepts. The world-honored one also sent the venerable Purna to the palace to expound the dharma to the king. 3 weeks passed in this way. Because he had eaten the flour paste and heard the dharma, he appeared peaceful and contented. Then Ajatashatru asked the guard, "Is my father still alive?" The guard replied, "Great king, his consort spreads flour paste over her body, fills her ornaments with grape juice, and offers these to the king. The monks Mahamadgalyayana and Purna came here through the air to expound the dharma to him. It is impossible to stop them." Hearing this, Ajatashatru became furious with his mother and said, "Because you are an accomplice of that enemy, mother, you too are an enemy. Those monks are evil, for with their delusive magic they have kept this wicked king alive for many days." So saying, he drew his sharp sword, intending to kill her. At that time the king had a minister named Chandraprabha, who was intelligent and wise. Together with Jivaka, he made obeisances to the king and said, "Great king, according to a certain Vedic scripture, since the beginning of this cosmic period there have been 18,000 wicked kings who have killed their fathers out of their desire to usurp the throne, but we have never heard of anyone who has committed the outrage of killing his mother. Your Majesty, if you commit such an outrage, you will bring disgrace upon the Kshatriya class. As your ministers, we cannot bear to hear what people will say. As this would be the act of an outcast, we could no longer remain here." Having spoken these words, the 2 ministers grasped their swords and stepped back. Agitated and frightened, Ajatashatru said to Jivaka, "Are you not on my side?" Jivaka replied, "Your Majesty, please restrain yourself and do not kill your mother." Hearing this, the king repented and begged their forgiveness. Having thrown away his sword, he stopped short of killing his mother, and instead ordered the court officials to lock her up in an inner chamber and not allow her to leave. Vaidehi, thus confined, grew emaciated with grief and despair. Facing Vulture Peak, she worshipped the Buddha from afar and said, "O Tathagata, world-honored one, you used to send Ananda to comfort me. Now I am in deep sorrow and distress. Since there is no way of my coming to look upon your august countenance, world-honored one, I pray you send Venerable Mahamadgalyayana and Venerable Ananda here to see me." When she had said these words, tears of sorrow streamed down her cheeks like rain. Then she bowed toward the Buddha in the distance. Even before she raised her head, the world-honored one, who was then staying on Vulture Peak, knew Vaidehi's thoughts and immediately ordered Mahamadgalyayana and Ananda to go to her through the air. He himself disappeared from the mountain and reappeared in the inner chamber of the royal palace. After worshipping him, Vaidehi raised her head and saw Sakyamuni Buddha, the world-honored one. He was the color of purple gold and was seated upon a lotus flower of 100 jewels. He was attended by Mahamadgalyayana on his left and Ananda on his right. Chakra, Brahma, the guardian gods of the world, and other devas were in the air about him. Scattering heavenly blossoms like rain, they paid homage to the Buddha. When she saw the world-honored one, Vaidehi tore off her ornaments and prostrated herself on the ground. Weeping bitterly, she said to the Buddha, "O world-honored one, what bad karma did I commit in former lives that I have given birth to such an evil son? I wonder, world-honored one, what karmic relations could have made you a relative of Devadatta? I beseech you, world-honored one, to reveal to me a land of no sorrow and no affliction where I can be reborn. I do not wish to live in this defiled and evil world of Jambudvipa, where there are hills, realms of hungry ghosts, animals, and many vile beings. I wish that in the future I shall not hear evil words or see wicked people. World-honored one, I now kneel down to repent and beg you to take pity on me. I entreat you, O sun-like Buddha, to teach me how to visualize a land of pure karmic perfection." Then the world-honored one sent forth from between his eyebrows a flood of light that was the color of gold and illuminated the innumerable worlds in the 10 directions. Returning to the Buddha, the light settled on his head and transformed itself into a golden platform resembling Mount Sumeru. On the platform appeared the pure and resplendent lands of all the Buddhas in the 10 directions. Some of these lands were made of the 7 kinds of jewels, some solely of lotus flowers. Some resembled the palace in the heaven of free enjoyment of manifestations by others, while some were like a crystal mirror in which all the lands in the 10 directions were reflected. Innumerable Buddha lands like these, glorious and beautiful, were displayed to her. Vaidehi then said to the Buddha, "O world-honored one, these Buddha lands are pure and free of defilement, and all of them are resplendent. But I wish to be born in the land of utmost bliss of Amitayus. I beseech you, world-honored one, to teach me how to contemplate that land and attain samadhi." The world-honored one smiled, and from his mouth came 5 colored rays of light, each shining on King Bimbisara's head. Although the old king was confined, with his unhindered mind's eye he saw the world-honored one in the distance. He knelt down in homage to the Buddha and effortlessly made spiritual progress until he reached the stage of non-returner. Then the world-honored one said to Vaidehi, "Do you know that Amitayus is not far away? Fix your thoughts upon and contemplate that Buddha land. Then you will accomplish the pure acts. I shall describe it to you in detail with various illustrations, so that all ordinary people in the future who wish to practice pure karma may also be born in that western land of utmost bliss. Whoever wishes to be born there should practice the 3 acts. First, caring for one's parents, attending to one's teachers and elders, compassionately refraining from killing, and doing the 10 good deeds. Second, taking the 3 refuges, keeping the various precepts, and refraining from breaking the rules of conduct. And third, awakening aspiration for enlightenment, bodhicitta, believing deeply in the law of causality, chanting the Mahayana Sutras, and encouraging people to follow their teachings. These 3 are called pure karma." The Buddha further said to Vaidehi, "Do you know that these 3 acts are the pure karma practiced by all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future as the right cause of enlightenment?" The Buddha said to Ananda and Vaidehi, listen carefully, and ponder deeply. I, the Tathagata, shall discourse on pure karma for the sake of all sentient beings of the future who are afflicted by the enemy, evil passions. It is very good, Vaidehi, that you have willingly asked me about this. Ananda, you must receive and keep the Buddha's words and widely proclaim them to the multitude of beings. I, the Tathagata, shall now teach you, Vaidehi, and all sentient beings of the future, how to visualize the western land of utmost bliss. By the power of the Buddha, all will be able to see the pure land as clearly as if one were looking at one's own reflection in bright mirror. Seeing the utmost beauty and bliss of that land, they will rejoice and immediately attain insight into the non-arising of all dharmas. The Buddha said to Vaidehi, "You are unenlightened, and so your spiritual powers are weak and obscured. Since you have not yet attained the divine eye, you cannot see that which is distant, but the Buddha Tathagatas have special ways to enable you to see afar." Vaidehi said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, through the Buddha's power, even I have now been able to see that land, but after the Buddha's passing, sentient beings will become defiled and evil and be oppressed by the 5 kinds of suffering. How then will those beings be able to see the land of utmost bliss of Amitayus?" The Buddha said to Vaidehi, "You and other sentient beings should concentrate and with one pointed attention turn your thoughts westward. How do you contemplate? All sentient beings except those born blind, that is, all those with the faculty of sight, should look at the setting sun. Sit in the proper posture facing west. Clearly gaze at the sun, with mind firmly fixed on it. Concentrate your sight, and do not let it wander from the setting sun, which is like a drum suspended above the horizon. Having done so, you should then be able to visualize it clearly, whether your eyes are open or closed. This is the visualization of the sun, and is known as the first contemplation. To practice in this way is called the correct contemplation, and to practice otherwise is incorrect." The Buddha said to Ananda and Vaidehi, "After you have accomplished the first contemplation, next practice the visualization of water. Envision the western direction as entirely flooded by water. Then picture the water as clear and pure, and let this vision be distinctly perceived. Keep your thoughts from being distracted. After you have visualized the water, envision it becoming frozen. After you have visualized the ice as transparent to its depth, see it turning into beryl. When you have attained this vision, next imagine that the beryl ground shines brilliantly inside and out, and that this ground is supported from below by columns that are made of diamond and the 7 kinds of jewels, and hung with gold banners. These columns have 8 sides and 8 corners, each side being adorned with 100 kinds of jewels. Each jewel emits 1,000 rays of light, each ray in turn having 84,000 colors. As they are reflected on the beryl ground, they look like 1,000 kotis of suns, so dazzling that it is impossible to see them in detail. On this beryl ground, golden paths intercross like a net of cords. The land is divided into areas made of one or the other of the 7 jewels, so the partitions are quite distinct. Each jewel emits a flood of light in 500 colors. The light appears in the shape of a flower or a star or the moon. Suspended in the sky, it turns into a platform of light on which there are 10 million pavilions made of 100 kinds of jewels. Both sides of this platform are adorned with 100 kotis of flowered banners and innumerable musical instruments. As 8 pure breezes arise from the light and play the musical instruments, they proclaim the truths of suffering, emptiness, impermanence, and no self. This is the visualization of the water, and is known as the second contemplation. When you have attained this contemplation, visualize each object quite clearly without losing the image, whether your eyes are closed or open. Except when sleeping, always keep it in mind. To practice in this way is called the correct contemplation, and to practice otherwise is incorrect. The Buddha said to Ananda and Vaidehi, "When the visualization of the water has been accomplished, it is called the general perception of the ground of the land of utmost bliss. If you attain a state of samadhi, you will see this ground so clearly and distinctly that it will be impossible to describe it in detail. This is the visualization of the ground, and is known as the third contemplation." The Buddha said to Ananda, "Keep these words of the Buddha in mind, and has attained a vision of the ground of that land, the evil karma that would bind one to birth and death for 80 kotis of kalpas will be extinguished, and so one will certainly be born in the Pure Land in the next life. Do not doubt this. To practice in this way is called the correct contemplation, and to practice otherwise is incorrect. The Buddha said to Ananda and Vaidehi, when you have accomplished visualization of the ground, next contemplate the jeweled trees. This is how to do so. Visualize each one, and then form an image of 7 rows of trees, each being 8,000 yojanas high, and adorned with 7 bejeweled blossoms and leaves. Each blossom and leaf has the colors of various jewels. From the beryl-colored blossoms and leaves issues forth a golden light. From the crystal-colored blossoms and leaves issues forth a crimson light. From the agate-colored blossoms and leaves issues forth a sapphire light. From the sapphire-colored blossoms and leaves issues forth a green pearl light. Coral, amber, and all the other jewels serve as illuminating ornaments. Splendid nets of pearls cover the trees. Between these 7 rows of nets covering each tree there are 500 kotis of palaces, adorned with exquisite flowers, like the palace of the Brahma king, where celestial children naturally dwell. Each of these children wears ornaments made of 500 kotis of kshatra, abhilagna, mani, gems, which light up 100 yojanas in all directions, like 100 kotis of suns and moons shining together, and so it is impossible to describe them in detail. Manifold jewels intermingle, producing the most beautiful colors. Rows of these jeweled trees are evenly arranged, and their leaves are equally spaced. From among the leaves appear wonderful blossoms which spontaneously bear fruits of the 7 kinds of jewels. Each leaf is 25 yojanas in both length and breadth. Like the celestial ornaments, the leaves are of 1,000 colors and 100 patterns. These trees have marvelous blossoms which are the color of gold from the Jambu River and spin like fire wheels among the leaves. From these blossoms appear various fruits, as from Chakra's vase, and from the fruits issue forth great floods of light, which transform themselves into banners and innumerable jeweled canopies. Inside the jeweled canopies can be seen reflections of all the activities of the Buddha throughout the universe of 1,000 million worlds. The Buddha lands in the 10 directions are also reflected in them. After you have seen these trees, visualize each detail in order: the trunks, branches, leaves, blossoms, and fruits, and let your vision of all of them be clear and distinct. This is the visualization of the trees, and is known as the 4th contemplation. To practice in this way is called the